I really love card games. Slay the Spire, Monster Train, Wild Frost, and a little early last year, the world was introduced to Balatro. I'm sure it doesn't need any introduction, but Balatro is a poke-inspired roguelike deck builder where all you want to do is make a number go big, using all the jokers and various other cards that are offered to you. And I have shamelessly lost quite some time to this game, which is not even a lot if you've seen any of the other people's playtime. Either way, as I am a game developer as well, I always wanted to learn how to make a card game, so I just thought why not try and recreate one of my favorites for a video. So this is my journey on how I recreated Balatro in a month. I started by making placeholder art for the cards just to test some things like this hovering effect that I managed to make thanks to a kind stranger on the Godot Shaders website. Later I made a bunch of textures for each of the card ranks and suits, and I went for the high contrast colors because it's so much easier to tell what the card suit is. But yeah, I also went for a much lower resolution than the original game just to give myself a challenge. And I think I handled it pretty well. And I also need something to hold a bunch of cards together. So I made this card holder object that can store multiple cards, and with some math also spreads them apart evenly. And remember that beautiful swirly paint background in Balatro? Well, someone straight up ripped it out from the game and translated it into the Godot shader language. And with a little bit of copy pasting, it's now in my game. So one of the main parts of Balatro is picking cards from your hand, and your hand will score based on what kind of poker hand it is, which depends on the suits and the ranks of the cards. And now I have to write a whole big algorithm to figure out what kind of poker hand the player is holding. But after a while I got everything working really well. But to simplify how it does work, basically there are a bunch of values like has flush, has pair, has straight, etc. Then there's a big mess of code that sets those values either true or false, and based on those values and the priority of the hand type, we let the game know what the current hand is. For example, if has 4 of a kind is true, then the hand will be a 4 of a kind. But it also makes it easier to do more complicated hand types. If has flush and has straight is true, then you will get a straight flush. Anyway, putting all the technical stuff aside, the hand checking works perfectly, somehow. Another important thing in the game is discarding and drawing cards, so you can find the ones you want. I added a discard and a play button at the bottom, and now you are able to discard and draw cards, and then I made it so that you can play the cards too, and they will be scored and then discarded. And since we can score hands now, I'm going to work on jokers. I made a texture for the basic joker, and it will just sit up there and do nothing. But before we make the jokers work, we need to do some other basic scoring stuff, such as the UI to show the score. And I also had to get the base chip and mult for each hand type, and now they will pop up in the UI when you select any type of hand. You can also drag cards around, but can't reorder them like you can in the normal game, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, with a lot of coding done, the jokers will finally start scoring, and the system is flexible enough to support all sorts of abilities. And just to show this, I added another joker that gives extra mult when a heart card is scored. And then I made 3 more jokers that does the same thing but for the rest of the suits. I did some extra UI for the blind goal that doesn't work yet, but I did add a button so that you can sell the jokers. And then I did a lot more UI stuff, and you will be able to see how many times you can play a hand and discard. In the actual game, you have a blind with a score requirement. To beat the blind, you must get an equal score or higher than the goal. If you run out of hands before you could, you will lose and the screen pops up. In my game, however, you just get soft locked and the game becomes unplayable, so basically the same thing. There's also this thing where if you score higher than the goal in a single hand, some fire appears on the chip and melt boxes. So using another shader that I also found online, I added it to my game. Doesn't look as good, but it works. And when you beat a blind, you are greeted with a screen showing how much money you earned. And once you cash out, you enter the shop where you can find jokers and many other stuff. And in my game, it's completely bugged, but once I figured out the issue, you can now get money and enter the shop. But since we only have made jokers, and a very few of them compared to the 150 jokers in the official game, there's really nothing much to get. One thing I need to get out of the way, I won't be making every single feature in the official game, like vouchers, boss blinds, but I will be making tarots and planet cards, which I'll be getting into right now. So tarot cards are used to do various things. They are considered consumables and disappear when used. One of the main uses is that they give cards enhancements, and only one enhancement can be applied on a card at a time, which can make them stronger, give them other abilities, or just change their behavior entirely. Some of the other tarot cards give you money, give you jokers, or just straight up not work because they only have a 1 in 4 chance to trigger. But now I must do the art for each of them. And I wanted to see how well I can replicate the art of the original with the low resolution I chose all this time. And in a single sitting, I managed to do half of the 22 tarot cards from the game, and so I sat down one more time to draw the rest. And I think I did a pretty decent job. I mean, if you have played the game, I think you could tell what each of them are. But anyway, I also made textures for the enhanced cards and put them all in the game, and even added a card holder for consumables. One other thing I added was rearranging cards. It is a bit buggy, as you can see, but that's because of some bad choices I made early into development that I am too scared to change now. But it was a lesson learned. Anyway, rearranging cards is necessary for this one tarot called Death, which needs 2 cards to be selected, and it will turn the left card into the right card. Rearranging will just give you more control over this effect, so it is really helpful. A lot of the others work fine, I won't get into too much detail, but the Wheel of Fortune, the one known for never working even though it's just a 25% chance, yeah, in my game it doesn't work at all. And that's how it will stay because the Wheel of Fortune changes the addition of the card. And if I were to add it into my game, I would need to do a bunch of shader stuff. And I am really bad with shaders, so it's out of the scope for this project. But hey, at least most of them work. And now we are going to move on to planet cards. In the original game, planet cards are used to increase the base, mult, and chips of a hand. And each planet upgrades a specific hand type so you can get higher scores. So I started working on the art, which doesn't look as good as the tarot cards, but it's something. And like a tarot card, it is also considered a consumable, and it was much easier to add into the game. And now you can upgrade your poker hands. I also made this box pop up when you hover over a card to give some information about it, so you can see what each tarot does, how many chips a card has, and what hand a planet card will upgrade. And to finish up the project, I added blind progression. The score will get higher and higher, the same way it does in the normal game, and you can re-roll in the shop. And lastly, I added a couple more jokers, including this one. If you've been on the channel before, you'll probably recognize it. So yeah, that's how I remade Balatro. This project won't be public unlike my other ones since this one is really buggy. But if you really want to try it out anyway, join my Discord to get access to it. Just don't expect me to fix anything. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes from making this project. The code was a mess, but I learned a lot on what I need to do when making card games. And I hope to do a more original card game in the future. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around. This game took a lot of time and effort to make, so please, if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Maybe even check out some of my other videos like how I remade Plants vs Zombies in 3 days. Anyways, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.